Yeah. So it's streaming, right? Is this streaming?
It still says waiting for you.
Oh, you are live.
You are live. The internet can totally see you now.
I'll do it live.
Oh, yes?
We'll do it live! Well, so, okay. How do I show my screen?
Ooh, yeah.
Stream output.
Video.
Video output is currently active. Please turn off any outputs.
Okay.
How do I... Rob, can you see my screen?
Nope. So it's still on when you sign in. It still says waiting on.
Okay, well, it's a blank screen now, so I think it is streaming at least.
Well,
So.
the stream health is now orange.
Yeah, I noticed
Before it
that
was
too.
green.
It was,
Wait,
yeah.
Because it's like, well, viewers may.
She's like your screen not showing.
Okay. Go. It said in there. It said output. Could that potentially be? Or maybe you need an input. I guess is what you need.
No, at this point, I would
Source?
think you need
Oh,
to.
here we go. Source. Display capture, right?
Display or window? Let's try display. Create new.
Yes.
Whoa!
Success. It works.
Guys, it's still not broadcasting.
Give it one moment.
Yeah.
There
Hey! It's on a delay!
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, you're gonna go.
Guys, still not broadcasting.
Guys, it's still not broadcasting.
I refuse to believe
Yeah.
it. Hey! It's on a delay!
Perfect.
It's gotta have a key though. Like,
Can you refresh?
I refuse
You shouldn't have to.
Right? So I think what the live streaming is like, I set up an event that, like, in advance, and I think that has a key attached to it, right? Like, that would make sense.
Okay, well, we've made a lot of progress here.
It deleted my event.
Oh.
Oh, because it's not there anymore.
Cal Taylor live stream?
I mean, this is
It's
right.
showing.
Okay, how
Can
about
we send people a link?
yes? Let's do that. Let's
You can put that in the chat.
right. The whole two people waiting. Oh, one of them.
Yes, let's do that.
Move here.
Okay, click on that secret list.
Two people.
Oh, one of
Yes.
But it's like, this is not a good view, right? 'Cause,
No,
like,
I think it's it. This is it, man.
I know, but like it's only showing like a quarter of my screen.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Display, crop
There we go.
to window? Or... Oh, it's like saying crop to like a specific app. Like no, don't crop.
Oh, it's probably because the screen resolution of your laptop is higher than 16 by 9, so you have to make your screen 16 by 9. So Retina, ooh, that might do it. No, that's your main display. Go back to your display.
You scaled.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there it is. 1080p is where you want it, I would imagine. That's for the display. What about for your main monitor?
So
Unless you make your main display.
I think I just need a mirror. These are mirror. Yeah. So
Oh,
it's
they're
mirror. So it's one and the same.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So I think
Oh, what's this thing? Oh, what?
so now it's like really
What? This is weird.
Okay, so now you're cropping the screen and you're making it fit.
Yeah, there we go.
Sweet.
Rob, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see all of your movement and your talking. Actually, that doesn't look bad. If you move it over.
Yeah, perfect. You're done.
Look at
We're
that.
good to go.
Okay, I have some like.
Success.
Okay, let's see if we can mute this guy.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, Rob, can you do an audio check for me? Like, can you hear things? If you turn your sound up. Rob, can you do an audio check?
I think it works. Okay.
I am so excited.
Cool. So this was a class for learning how to use
Right,
the stream,
exactly. All right,
Yeah,
so we all
we're
watched
done.
this. We're done. Congratulations, everyone. We're going to go get a certificate.
Cool, teamwork.
Only one problem.
What now?
I still see your display.
What do you mean you still see my
Yeah,
display?
we want to see the screen.
No.
Like it's
Display
static.
setting.
Oh, give it a moment. Maybe. Oh. Okay.
I see
that.
You see this one. Okay, whatever. Just do everything in that window.
What if I...
Don't stop.
Oh, it's a display capture. What the heck is that?
Oh no, it's all good. Because I think that's what we set it up as. Remember, was display capture. So there's like a display.
Oh, so we had a source.
So
Display capture.
I don't want to capture. I just want...
window capture.
Video,
you don't want to
video
capture.
capture device? No. Couldn't it be that? So was it a static image? Is that what you were seeing? But we got
No,
the
I
video?
can see it moving all around or whatever.
No, I think
It's just
So I can do this.
I think you did it correctly.
Oh, so it's like a little...
picture in picture.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, we're getting closer.
I think you had it right, man.
So I just need a...
You need a web browser if you can pull that up.
Oh, is that what you need? Browser source?
browser source?
Is that where you're going to be doing all
Yeah.
your stuff in?
Is that a thing? Oh, it's like if you wanted to have like a website up there.
Oh, okay.
That's not... I need like
Just
a...
do your screen thing. I think that's what you want.
It was just weird how it was
That was weird.
not switching.
Game capture? Display cap... Oh, no.
That has to be it.
I think it was we were selling.
Make source visible. Add existing display.
Here it is.
So, if I just don't do anything, now do you see it?
There's a delay.
Is there a
Yes,
chat?
but going back to the whole, I can only see a quarter.
Okay, well we can fix that. We just fix that real quick.
We sure did.
It may have been the delay that was the issue a moment ago.
No, I think he waited. That was really cool.
Because changing the size should have nothing to do with it. And then if you can make yourself be up front if you want.
This is so stupid.
Yeah, move up.
All right,
Yeah,
so
there it
here's
is.
what I would think.
Okay, perfect. Good enough.
Now what?
It should be good. I'm sure whoever's watching on the internet is probably really.
Yeah, they're... Yeah.
Ooh, I can see Kyle.
We got it?
And I can see a very
And you can hear it?
pixelated image.
You can hear it too?
Yeah, Ooh, I can see Kyle. We got it.
All right, we're done.
All right.
All right.
Let's get this show on the road.
Thanks for a bunch of fools.
Oh gosh. All right. So today, let's just go to the meetup page really quick. This is an extension of the meetup 2 weeks ago, which I know you two guys weren't here. But basically, what we did is we went through Google Analytics and like how you would use Google Analytics and what are the important things of Google Analytics. And if you want, we have some cheat sheets over at my desk. If it just kind of goes over like what all the terms are, what are the important things when you're looking at web analytics, things like that. And so analytics are kind of useless if, while you may be collecting data, but if you're not interpreting them to make like action-oriented decisions based on data, then it's like kind of useless, right? To just be collecting data and not doing anything with it. So Google, lovingly data hogging, privacy, not caring Google, has created this tool called Google Data Studio, which is basically like a BI tool for helping you visualize this data in ways that can help you either, like as an organization or company, make better decisions based on that data. Now, while I'm going to demo building a Google Analytics report, there are a number of reports you can build. They interact with multiple data sources. You can just import spreadsheets if you want to visualize data. You can integrate directly with like Google BigQuery. So like if you're storing data in the cloud, like stuff that's all constantly being updated, there's a lot of really cool things you can do. There's also some community connectors. So for example, even though we're using a Google product, say your analytics are running on Adobe, you can use a connector to connect your Adobe data, bring it back in, and build some dashboards. So yeah, the purpose really is just taking all the data you have and putting it into a formal report that can help you make better decisions for your company. Can we just talk about like what do we do here and like what interests you to come to this talk, or you know what you might be using this data for?
So I'm just here to learn. I'm a finance student.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what I do. I trade equities and that sort of thing, and I'm interested in kind of learning more about using data and how to, I guess, kind of incorporate that into the finance market. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, Google Analytics, I mean, not that this is directly related to finance, but, you know, if you're using, like, advanced e-commerce data capturing, you know, one really cool thing you can do is kind of cross-reference the analytics you have on the site, the conversions you're tracking, and the goals you're meeting with the number of sales that you're bringing in at the same time. So, for example, if you see, like, a dip in traffic and that equates to, like, a dip in sales, like, do those correlate to each other? Or in one of our client examples, they actually had a dip in traffic but an increase in sales, and we're like, oh, what's going on there? So,
do you guys find out?
That one, it was just like I was building an example report using this one set of data, and whenever I saw that, I was like, I don't need to dig into this right now, but this is interesting. I'll mark it for later to go back and look at it. But yeah, it could be in your analytics. You can like mark it, like make a little annotation every time you do something. Say you implement some A/B testing, right? And so you can make an annotation like on July 4th we implemented A/B testing on this specific website. And so if in your report you see that maybe you have a decrease in like page views, but you have an increase in sales, and it's like maybe it happens right at the annotation, then that could probably be the reason why. Like, oh, this A/B testing is actually doing a great job in helping us optimize our sales.
Google also provides information on like which search queries are used. Is that correct? So you can see
sometimes,
kind of.
Yeah. So they actually got rid of that because it was just like a privacy thing where they used to tell you what keywords people were looking for when they came to your site. They don't offer that data anymore, but other search engines do. So like Bing and Yahoo, that data does come through. So it's sometimes useful, but not always. So what yourself?
So I work for a company that builds like automated experiences for people. And so what I do for them is I mainly do quality assurance and like developing out that department, but I also do like data projects. It's kind of like a weird data source because it's like conversation data. It's pretty much people that are interacting with these, for lack of a better term, like chatbots that we build based on like natural language understanding. And so it's kind of like a weird data to analyze because you're analyzing like literally just human input and trying to find correlations and why things were not handled and how they were handled and how to better handle them in the future. So I had no clue that Google had their own visualization.
Oh, yeah.
So I've typically used Tableau and things like that. So I'm just here just to kind of dig in and just kind of learn about the different offerings.
Yeah, and actually, while it's not as fully featured as Tableau, but Tableau, you know, when you do Tableau public, like you have to download the app to your computer, and then if you want to share it to the cloud, it's kind of limited in that place. But if you're already in the Google world, like if you have a Gmail account, you already have your analytics in there, it's a great cloud alternative and actually works really, really well.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's great for making. We'll talk about like strategic and operational and analytics dashboards later and like why we would use them, but it's great for like if you have higher ups or managers you have to report to, it's great to like make one, send them a link, and then they can see all the data.
Sweet.
So actually that is what I'm looking for. I have a client in Atlanta that is looking to try to reduce the time it takes them to fill positions. They're a staffing company. And so we are looking for some way to give their CEO a dashboard with all of the identified KPIs. And they are more a Google shop than they are a Microsoft shop.
Cool.
And so when I saw this today, I was like, I thought this was like Power BI by Microsoft and thought, hey, this would be great to learn it because I've made a few Power BI dashboards, but like anything Microsoft, it wasn't very helpful or easy. And so I was just trying to learn.
Yeah, you'll see how easy it is to make a dashboard in here. It's funny because while we prefer Google products as well at our company, the company I work for, we have some clients who like they collect a lot of data, but they don't do a lot of like action on that data. And so one of our recommendations in some consulting stuff I was doing recently, I was like, hey, you guys need to like make a dashboard. Like, hey, look, while I was in my hotel last night, I made this dashboard based on this other data. And they're like, that's really cool. Is that free? Yeah, cool. We can't use it.
No, really.
Just for like procurement reasons, right? So they have to like, it's a big financial company, so they have to like validate and verify all these things. So there are alternatives to Data Studio. Like you can use Clipfolio or Geckoboard or a number of other things, but Data Studio is definitely the most accessible so far. So I'm just going to get into like the types of dashboards we can build, and then also like building a measurement plan, like what that means. This will be really quick. I'm not going to dig too much in this because it's really specific to your use case. And I didn't make a presentation, so I'm just going to Google everything that I researched and then just pass it on to you. So the first thing we're going to look at are the different types of dashboards, and Clipfolio actually does a really great job explaining these. So they have a great blog post talking about the different types of dashboards you can build. And these are all totally relevant to different organizations. So they break them down into operational, strategic, and analytics dashboards. So an operational dashboard is kind of like your day-to-day mission control, right? So if you were a social media manager, what you're looking at are, say, a social media or like a web analytics manager, what you're looking at is what is the traffic we have right now or today? Like how many people are viewing the site right now? What is the bounce rate of the site right now, or like up to today? Do we see an increase, from yesterday? What are the number of engagements that are happening on social media? Are people retweeting us? Are they liking us? Are they sharing our content? Where are most people coming from? Things that are more like real time that we're trying to, just get a general overview of like what's going on right now at this moment in time. So I think the best description is like mission control, right? So like that's what we're doing. We're trying to just get a capture on like what's going on in our department or in our organization right now. A strategic dashboard is kind of like taking the data from an operational dashboard over a time series, right? So it's like what we're doing right now versus how we were doing a week ago, right? So you can see here, like if you compare the first one you see, I don't know why I'm standing up, I'm just going to point. It's single data, right? Like a single set of data, right? There's a single number for bounce rate, a single number for sessions, a single number for page views. But if you look at the strategic dashboard, it's like a comparison, right? So it's like the blue and green is like today and yesterday, right? Or what our goal is and what we're at right now. So if we are trying to get X number of sales for something, see if we can just pull it up. So if we're trying to reach X number in revenue or sales, that's a terrible explosion. What are we at right now? So that is more of a strategic dashboard. So this is what like a VP or like a CEO or someone like that would kind of look at this this dashboard.
So it's kind of used for a little bit of like a glimpse into the past, and then also like forecasting for what you're expecting.
It's more used for forecasting, I would say. So it's like a CEO or some kind of C-level exec like isn't going to. They don't care about what's going on today. They care about what happened this month and what happened over the past 6 months, and how we can use that data to forecast like what we think is going to happen in the next month or next 6 months. So,
Got it.
It sounds like there's.
Good.
I was gonna say, it sounds like there's a lot of different inputs that go into this, and that might be pretty difficult to wire up, to put together.
And that's where the measurement plan comes in, right? It's like it only makes sense. Have you heard the saying like only things that are measured matter, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the only things that we're actually looking at are the only things we're going to care about. It's like part of the measurement strategy or measurement plan is to take that data or take all the data that we have and figure out which ones are most important to us and what we think our goals are for the data that we're capturing. If we don't have any defined goals or defined things we're trying to achieve, then these dashboards are irrelevant, right? So, what's up? You missed the live streaming tutorial while live streaming.
No worries. I'm actually early for the Ruby group.
Oh yeah.
The Crasher party.
No problem.
So let me ask this for the strategic report. Would that be something that you could point someone to from like a reporting standpoint? So instead of doing a monthly status report, for example, when it's very like they're looking at things like page views and they're thinking of like number of hours spent on the number of hours that recruiters have spent for this particular project or something like that. Would that be better to send them to a static strategic report or strategic dashboard?
So I'm going to nitpick what you said.
Sure.
Because two of the things you mentioned, you mentioned page views and like number of hours, right? So page views are kind of irrelevant if you don't have a goal for what you're trying to get, right? So we launched a new website. Before the launch, we're recording the number of what's our average number of page views or sessions that we have on our site. And we launched a new site, and we're also comparing what we have now. So that's more like a cross comparison of historical data versus current data. Now and then hours, that's like a collection, like a collective data that we're recording up into a certain month or over the course of a month per se. Those are
So here's my.
It's more like a snapshot of an operational.
Here's my use case.
Dashboard.
Their recruiters will send out mass emails with links to a job post.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know you sent out 500 emails. You got 13 job posts. People that went to that site.
Mm-hmm.
Went to that. And
conversions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they said of those 50 people that have went to, or of those 13 people that actually clicked on the job site, how many hours did the recruiter log to do that work? So that's the correlation they're trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
Is if we're spending,
it's like level of effort, or
yeah.
I guess technically it's some kind of ROI.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you can totally build in that. That would probably be, I mean, if you were going to put in another column, say how many hours I spent last month versus hours this month, and then
sure. Yeah.
How many more conversions or people did they get to actually sign up or register for or apply for a new job or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the difference, right? It's how many hours are they spending right now on the number of applications versus how many hours did they spend last month versus right now, and that's your
so you
strategic
want the comparison.
Yeah, well, it's what's important. Like a PM, say there's a PM managing those guys. Mm-hmm. The operational one is more important to the PM, but the strategic one is more the people who are hiring, giving these guys money to do this. Yeah. So the analytical dashboard is really more, I guess, the big data kind of stuff. So what you're doing in finance, right, would be more analytical, right? So it's when we have to chew through a lot of data to get through some kind of analysis of some sort. So here the example is number of accounts versus the amount of money received versus just things like that. I couldn't really give you a good example other than the financial one I just described, but most of the time for your standard organization, you're mostly looking at the first two for the most part, and those can come in many forms, right? So you can have just a web analytics one. You can also have a social media one. You could have an e-commerce report. You can have operations like man hours and things like that. So it all depends on what you're measuring and how you look at it. So those are the types of dashboards. I totally encourage you guys to look at this blog post and go read it. It's by Clipfolio. Super awesome company. It's been around for a while. And the next thing we're going to talk about is a measurement plan. So you can literally just type in how to make a measurement plan, right? And this first one that comes up is by this Fresh Egg website. The reason why I like this one is because he gives you a table that really puts into context what a measurement plan means to your organization or like to your work, right? So a measurement plan is a way for us to figure out how we're going to take the things that we're measuring and like put a goal to them, right? So it doesn't matter like if we're recording the number of page views unless there's a reason why. Most people, you know, when you're looking at just like standard Google Analytics, like they go, oh yeah, we had a lot of page views this month. That's great. Cool. Like, was there a number you were shooting for? Like, are you trying to get past a certain number? Like, maybe you want to look at a trend over the past 12 months of the number of page views we had every month. Like, what's most popular? Like, say it was December and it was a holiday shopping season and, you know, they peaked out on Black Friday or something, you know, or November, December, whatever. And they peaked out on Black Friday and it's like, great, we had 43,000 people visit on this one single day in 2017. Let's try and get to X number in 2018, right? So that's kind of like, you know, understanding what metrics are that are important to your organization and how we're going to measure them. So the great example they have here is using, let's see if I can just look at this one image. Is using like an e-commerce like example. What they have on the top like are your objectives. So like how do we categorize all of our goals into groups, and then how do we break those down into the goals that are actually important, right? Or the KPIs that are important. So for example, under sales and growth, we want to measure you know, the growth of revenue. We also want to measure the growth of customers, right? So those are the two most important things when it comes to sales. So the things we can measure is how much money is coming in, the number of transactions, so whether they're big or small, what types of categories are doing best. So for example, if we have an e-commerce store, say we're selling shoes, like what types of shoes are doing best? Are they CrossFit? Are they, you know, dressy or classic or high heels, whatever, right? Average order value, you know, like you guys can read all of this, but this is a really great example of how we can break down the KPIs and metrics for an organization that makes it really important to like have an action-oriented plan when it comes to building your dashboard. And so each objective, like overall objective here, can be its own dashboard, right? So the first one can definitely be its own e-commerce one where we're measuring, you know, value in customers. The next one can be, you know, more maybe like just general web traffic, I suppose. Like, what is the interest in our site? What are people looking for? You know, how many new acquisitions do we have to our, you know, email lists? You know, things like that. And then, you know, social media, like that can be a whole dashboard by itself. So these, I encourage everyone to, if you are looking to build a dashboard that has some kind of, you know, end goal, come up with the measurement plan first. Now, I'll show you a dashboard that I made that has nothing to do with any of this. It was just like taking data in a spreadsheet and visualizing it like I would in Tableau. And you can totally use Data Studio for that. But, you know, if you're looking more at analytics and data, this is a great place to start. So, with that, let's actually look at Google Data Studio. So, Google Data Studio is great. All you have to do is go to datastudio.google.com, log in with your Google account, and then you have some stuff here. They have some pre-built reports or templates you can choose from. So, for example, say you're running a let's actually make this a little bigger. Say you're running a live stream and you want to view data coming in from your live stream analytics,
I think that's a great idea. You should do that.
then that's a really good section. So these are great. The marketing one is kind of a good start for just general analytics for your website. Hook it up to Google Analytics. AdWords. So if you're doing PPC or some kind of AdWords campaign, you want to look at the amount of money you're spending versus the amount of traffic you're getting or conversions you're getting. That's a great one to go through as well. Firebase actually. So if you're doing, say, some kind of like storing interactions in a mobile or web app, and you're using Firebase, which is just a storage tool owned by Google now, you can actually connect it to a Firebase data source and then pull in those metrics and like do all your reporting. So how many people are logging into the app every day? How many people are interacting with a certain piece? What is the average time people are spending on the app? Things like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do a standard. Actually, I'm going to use a template and then we'll make one from scratch. So if I click on Google Analytics, if you have an idea in mind of the report you want to make, do a quick search because the likelihood is that someone probably already made it in some capacity. So there are some great examples from this company called Lunametrics that they've made like an SEO one, they've made a social media one, they've made like general e-commerce one. And so here you can see that I don't have any data hooked up to this yet. This is just kind of all static data. So we can just select your data. And since I'm already logged in with my Google account, it's like here are all your Google Analytics numbers or whatever that we can integrate with this dashboard. So for example, since I have TechMill, I can use our techmill.co data. So what this is doing, you saw the little bar happening. It immediately went out, queried the data, and brought some data back into our report. So we can see that this was for the last month, so July 3rd to August 1st, so the last 30 days. We can see that we dropped 21% in the number of users who visited, which also infers a decrease in sessions as well, which is odd because we've had page views increase and our bounce rate decrease. So this means that we have less people coming to our site, but they're more engaged with our site. So they're clicking through to more pages, and also they're staying on our site longer, right? Why? I don't know. We haven't put any new content up. So people are obviously looking for something. Here's just turns out we have a really big fan base in Azerbaijan. So I didn't know that. This is a really great one, so where our traffic coming from? So it looks like most people are coming either directly or from organic search, which is great. Majority of our users are male and in the 25 to 34 demographic. So
where does it get that information?
Through Google Analytics. So they collect all this stuff. And there's a lot of really weird things that they infer from Google Analytics. So for example, they also know, or they guess the type of industry you might work in, or like the interest you have. So they recently did a re-architecting of their categories. It used to be really weird stuff like technophile or moviegoer, or these were like the terms they used, but now they kind of break them down into categories like home something, and then it's like irrigation, like maybe you work in lawn care or something, right? I don't know. It's just some weird things like that. So
demographics they actually pull from your Google account. Like they know you're male, they know how old you are.
Well, they can also infer that from other things. Like if you filled out a form that asks for your gender, while technically
they shouldn't have that in data, but they keep it in
that gets into some other stuff. GDPR, we've already talked about that before. We're not going to talk about it again. But But yeah, so this is a sample report here. I'm going to go ahead and just show you the Lunametrics one. So if you just Google like Lunametrics, Google is Studio template. Yeah, this is great. They have a lot of cool templates. So here's one. Google Analytics monthly overview. So let's just look at the template. And a really cool thing you can do in the dashboards whenever you make them is that you can create interactive filters. So for example, like date was one, right? So we can look at the last 30 days or last month. You can also filter through, say, like a client I'm working with right now. They have a website that has performance issues. And they're like, yeah, we have some users who are reporting like weird performance issues on our site. I'm like, cool, well, what type of site do you have? And it's like an Angular app that's embedded inside of a WordPress site that has, APIs coming from WordPress's JSON API and also from like an internal .NET server that's like doing some other querying, and then like a CDN specifically for images. And so it's like pulling all these weird things around, but also it's an Angular app. And so if they have a decent amount of users in another country with maybe they're using Android devices that don't support X, Y, and Z, we can actually filter down like, okay, let's see what the browser overview and browser versions are for users in your third most popular country, say like Italy, right? And what is the breakdown? And then let's look at the load time or page load time and things like that for those users. So that can help give us more insight, and we can just do a drop down and click through different ones. So let's look up. Let's just hook up another one here. OpenDenton's a good one. Let's try OpenDenton. See what that does. So this looks similar, really similar to the standard Google one that they put in. So this is great. So best traffic sources, like where people are coming from. Who knows what that is? Let's look at that one later. Most popular pages, so like the number of like if you have a blog or you're running some website, like it'll show you the most popular pages here. These are like interactive tables you can page through. You can also use filtering on, so we can page through to other tables, or you can say I don't want to look at bounce rate. I don't want to look at the number of entrances or whatever. And then you can use these filters on the side. So yeah, that's really cool. So let's build our own dashboard. So I'm going to go back to Google Data Studio. And I'm going to create let's just go to interface really quick. There's a list of reports, but also there's data sources. So if we click on data sources, you can see that I have a couple of data sources in here. One is web data from our analytics, and another one is we did an open data event last year, and I had to go through and clean up like City of Denton has a data portal.com, and one of the pieces of data that they imported were the number of like code violations in the city, right? And so I had to go through and had to find the data, clean it up because it didn't have any zip codes or anything. It was just like a partial street address, so I had to go through and like clean up all the stuff. So you could actually go into City of Denton, grab, say, traffic violations. And while these are split up by month, it would be really great if there was a single one. So you could download all these and then just have like one master one. But these are great because you can preview them, and they also have an API you can directly ping, right? So here's a big table of all the traffic violations, 1,792. So let's download this. Just do this. Yeah. All right. So we're taking all the traffic violations from July 2018, and we are going to put that into a Data Studio.
Well, we all know how you're.
So whenever I add a new data source, you can see where the data sources come from. We can either just upload a file. You can connect to any number of, any number of Google services, such as, ads, analytics, Google Sheets. So say if I just took this spreadsheet and I had it in my data, my Google Drive account. If you want to connect directly to database or any of those things, there are also these community connectors. So for example, one of them, I think it's Supermetrics. They do one for Adobe Analytics, right? So you can use their community connector, and I think you have to pay for the service, but there's a lot of other random things you can connect to. So surely there's some kind of like financial one in here, right? Actually, let's see if there is. Finance. None. Sorry. Better luck next time. This is super slow. Okay, so let's just do a file upload and authorize. Cool. Take my data. I'm going to give you more data. Traffic violations. This is going to be fun. Cool. So we went ahead and uploaded it, and we're just going to wait for it to finish processing. In the meantime, we're going to go back and then go back to our did I already give it a name? Shite. Cool. It'll also break down what type of data it is into different fields. It'll auto-detect, it'll try to auto-detect some of them. So for example, if you upload, say, like a pair of latitude longitude points, it'll actually detect it as like a geo, right? So there are different types of data that it'll define it as, currency, things like that. So the geo one's actually pretty cool because you can do some like map data. The cool one here is that we actually have state and zip already. State, zip, and city. You can actually, I wonder if there's an address. Am I not? Oh, yeah, address. Sorry, I was like name or something.
Does that also do map?
So one thing you could do is that you could get, there's actually a really cool little script you can embed with Google Spreadsheets that will, you just create a concatenated field with all those things like address, city, state, and then you select all of them, and there's a little button you can say like convert to geo lat long, right? And it'll create like a new column for you and automatically generate all those things because I spent like 30 hours trying to write this Python script and I kept running out of like requests to my Google Maps API key. I would have to wait like 24 hours to get another 5,000 hits. And I was like, why am I running the thing on the same address 4 times? So it was really dumb. But I tested this script. I just found it on the internet, just Google spreadsheet, like geo script or whatever. There's no limit apparently because I ran it on like 8,000 records in a day. And it worked. It's fine. So yeah, you could actually take this, put it in Google Spreadsheets, and get actually a geo data field, which would be really great. So let's create a report. It's just going to open up a plain old thing with our interface, and then we're going to add this data source to our report. So the cool thing is that you can add multiple data sources to a single interface and use that to kind of like cross-reference with other things. Now, while they're not always going to intersect, if you're making like this operational dashboard and say you want to pull data from different sources, that is how you can do it. Just
now, can it be as easy as something as like they would fill out the spreadsheet, like let's say they're tracking on the spreadsheet, and then every time they update it on that spreadsheet, it updates here on the dashboard?
That's correct. Yeah,
Awesome.
That's a really cool thing with this. So say you have like like either BigQuery or like even the Google spreadsheet that updates on the regular, right? That every time someone views this, like, because it's just a link you send someone, every time someone views it, it's going to be populated with the current data, right, that's in there. So that's actually a really great feature of Data Studio. So in here, you can't see the icon on the left, but this is just like add a page. So if you want to have like a multi-page report, you know, maybe you want to have like your operational, strategic, and analytics dashboards all in the same report, and you send them one single link. That's great. These are just the different types of charts you can build. If you select one and you put it on the page, say we did a bar chart, and you're like, oh, I don't need a bar chart, I need something else. You can actually just change it over here. So that's not really a big deal. So let's say, usually if you want to make it really fancy, usually what I'll do is I'll go in and just start with like something really simple. Like, okay, I'm going to put a bar up here. We're going to, and once you create a shape, it'll actually snap to the grid, which is awesome. So if you're really anal about the things. Oh my gosh, that's freaking out. Cool. 10 traffic violations, July 2018. We can ship this to like the city manager whenever we're done with our report. It's going to be awesome. Wow, this live streaming thing really slows down my computer. Cool. Just going to leave that there. So let's go ahead and add a chart. Take a simple bar chart. And then on the right hand side is really where all your fancy stuff is coming in. So what's the source of the data? And then what are your dimensions and metrics? So let's go ahead and choose from, oh, that's awesome. Let's go fix our data source. Let's go look at our data source.
I've got a question about the blended data. So do you have to map that on like a certain
key?
Yeah, like something where it correlates between both data sources. Like maybe it's like a user ID or something like that, where you can actually join the table and have it all make sense.
I'm gonna go with probably because I haven't used it yet. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a ton of stuff in here that I have not even played with yet. Let's just create a new data source because this obviously, I think I messed up. This, and then this, add files, connect. Oh, see, I didn't click my button. That was why. And then click add to report. Cool. We'll just get rid of the other one. Let's go with this one. Awesome. So, so these are the people with the most. No, I'm just kidding. So great. Let's go by violation date. So when they got it. Then let's pick a dimension like. Is there like a I'm looking for like the type of violation. Here we go. Perfect. Let's just make this go all the way across. So let's see, let's break it down by the type of violation. And then let's do, so it doesn't know what this is. Like we should actually go back into our data source and change the docket number to text instead of number because it's like trying to aggregate these things. 750 billion. It's not right. So let's go ahead and change this to get rid of it. None of these are good. I want like a custom value. So you can't see it, but on the bottom there's a a thing called create new metric right down here. So we can create like a calculated field, for example. So I'm going to do count by, what is this? What is this other metric? Type, count by type? I don't know. Count by violation type. Violation type. And then, I don't think, what? Just leave that open. Gosh. Okay, let's try it again. Count by violation type. And the formula, it's like not giving me nothing. Your string, add a field. I think it's just like erroring out because this is weird. I'm just going to hard refresh on this guy.
You're just trying to like build a metric where you can just like sum the total amounts.
Yeah, it's exactly what I want. But it's like giving me, it's like not populating the form correctly.
But you could take your data, update that in your data to add that new column somewhere, and then you.
Yeah, you could. Here we go. Right. So this is what I wanted. Right. So it shows you the fields on the side, and then it just generates a field ID for you, and then you have a little box for like, this is basically you can run kind of like Excel-like queries in here, right, or commands in here. So let's do count by violation type, and then I want to do count code description, right? So, and it also validates it down here. Like if it doesn't think it's right or something, it'll throw an error. So great, count by violation. So I want that. So here we can see that the most number of violations that we had are speeding and different kinds of speeding, obviously. So let's go into the style of this bar chart and change it. So we can add more bars. For example, say you want to display more sets of data in here, right? Show data labels, so put some numbers in there. Yeah, I think the problem with these is that the labels are like super long. I can't make that any wider, can I?
Can you wrap the text?
I think, it's like the one drawback. You can add like padding, I think. At least you could. I don't know what this means. Oh, I get it. It's saying like what's the minimum value you would display? Well, you can also take the same thing. So I'm going to take this chart and just put it right below. So we'll have like a visual representation right above, and right below, we'll take the same chart and then change it into a table. Perfect. Speeding in 30 miles an hour zone. This is awesome.
You should send this to city manager.
So ran red light.
Oh,
Disregard, no turn on red.
Those red light cameras.
So
Yeah.
So that 30-mile-an-hour zone, that's when they were busting everybody on Mingo.
Oh yeah, they have
So
one
they-
on
they
Dallas
made their-
Drive
they
too.
made their own category for it.
Yeah. Well, so the cool thing here would be is that if we want to add context to this, right? So let's add a little more context. Let's add another dimension, which is zip code. right? So
And this would be zip code of the violation?
Yeah.
Or zip code of the violation?
I think it's the zip code of the violation.
That would make sense.
Am I not seeing it?
I think they also have the,
They would have your driver's license.
yeah, they have all that information as well, which is
I hope they
interesting.
wouldn't make that public.
I think it is. And I'm surprised that insurance companies don't scoop all this up.
Give him time. Give him time.
So, okay, so we're gonna fix our data here because it's like counting up all the zip codes.
Oh.
Right? We don't want that. That's obviously wrong.
These are big numbers here.
So let's manage our resource. Let's go into our CSV. Let's change our zip to text. And then, oh yeah, you can also do things here like aggregation.
Yeah, the aggregation.
So actually, let's do.
That might do it for the city states, perhaps. Would that put those together?
Oh, that's what I wanted actually. I want to aggregate that. So it'll do like a sum, like age, for example. Like we're not gonna. This should be a text too because we're not gonna get a collective age of. If you ever add all the people together, they're 1,875 years old, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So yeah,
I guess you could use that to find the average age, but it's I don't like it one.
right. Yeah.
With it being a number, I suppose.
So let's go back down here. Let's take this off. It's a dimension now. And let's use zip. There we go. So now we can actually do like summary by zip, for example, which would be a really good one, actually. So I take it out of this one. Let's see. Actually, a new chart. Let's do a pie chart. I think would be a good representation of like the breakdown of violations by zip code. So let's do dimension of zip, and then cross that by the count of violations. It's really the most important, like where are all the violations. So it looks like here, so that's others, so it just kind of like groups everything else into others. So yeah, so cool. So we have some charts here, right? So it's like, great, we made a report. I work for the city, I'm the city manager. We need to report this to the, whoever, police, chief of police or something like that. We could even do, if we had, say, the thing I noticed with the reports is that when cops are writing like tickets down, like the address, there's not like a single format for that, which can be, I don't know, problematic in the sense that if you're trying to aggregate data, say you had like, I don't know, a slight miss up of number, or like it's not digital and like they're writing it down, like what are they writing down? And if they're like two streets apart, like how do you aggregate that? Like you're going to get a million data points instead of just like a couple of aggregated data points. So one thing I would do is I would put this in Google spreadsheets, try and get a lat long. Maybe we can get some kind of generalization here, and we can actually see maybe based on by zip code or by what do we want to call it, like just general address area where the most number of violations are happening. We probably already know that, but
so you're saying you could put on a map and almost have like key points?
yeah, exactly.
If
So
that's if it actually says where, which it should show where they should say that the violation happened.
so if you have a geo metric that you can use, and you actually look at, say,
It'd be interesting to give a badge number and you can see which police officers gave the most tickets.
Well, at least we know now where not to speed, and that's at 30 miles.
Yeah. This class would have been helpful last month.
So what you can do now is that you can click view.
Can you do queries?
Sure, you can.
Okay.
so yeah, so these are all now interactive, right? And so you can scroll through and do all those things. And then say I want to share this with Rob, right? So it's just like sharing anything you would in Google, right? You can just get a shareable link, copy this, paste it, email it, send it to whoever, and now this data is constantly going to be coming up. People can review it. So if it was a master spreadsheet, for example, say they updated it every month.
So would they have to have the link? So like if you were to connect this to a Google Sheet, and they would have to go to the Google Sheet to update the data, that's where they would update it. And then if somebody, would this update in real time, or is there like a scheduled refresh?
Yeah,
no, it's real time.
So like let's just say like an executive had a screen on his office. As they update that spreadsheet, it'll update that and it'll change it. Okay.
It's only if it's done in Google Docs, correct?
They would have to go to that Google Doc.
As long as the source, when you're looking at the data sources, right? So it's like AdWords and file upload and spreadsheets and BigQuery or whatever. Those are all refreshed on the regular by Google. Now, if you are using another source, say like Adobe Analytics, for example, this is not necessarily how it works. I'm going to explain it. It is up to the service that is providing that connector to, like either fetch that data from the live source or to control whether they're going to store a cache copy of it, and they're going to choose how often they update that data. Right now, that's up to them. But
Right.
from what I can tell, any of the Google connections you make, there's always live data, which is why whenever you first load the report, it's like has like little loading bar, gray bar across the top, and it's loading all that data, like querying all that data fresh. So yeah, now I can take this report and I can send it to whoever I want, and done. Right? You can also embed it like in a website, for example. So say let's click on edit, click on the little embed. You can now copy a little iframe, throw it into your website, and that's all constantly being refreshed as well. So
Maybe you should put that out there and let everybody see it. Know where not to speak.
put it on the Open Denton website.
There you go.
Actually, so it'd be really cool with
like statistically, like where people are being pulled over the most often.
So this is completely unrelated to Google Data Studio, but the City Denton Open Data Portal runs on something called CCAN, which is a Python-based like open data content management system, right? So you create like a data collection, and in that data collection you can have different data sets. And so while we're looking at, this is like the organization of like here under the municipal court section and traffic violations, we have, traffic violations for everything. Now, what would be cool is if all of these were standard, like column format, if we could aggregate, because you can actually, while you don't see it, CCAN has like a hidden API behind it. We've used this before, right? And it would be cool if there was a query where we can query multiple data sets to then aggregate that into a single data output and then have that single source go into Google Data Studio. And you wouldn't even have to update any like data sources, just like all through the API. Like that'd be really cool. But that's beside the point. So yeah, I mean, that's, it's 7:18. I started recording around 6:22 after the 20-minute kind of snafu. So yeah, I mean, this is very basic, but
It's super helpful though.
it's super helpful. I mean, let me show you guys a report that I made for like a demo for another client.
I mean, the practical applications of it's pretty great.
Let's see. This one? Yeah. So this one was cool. This was one I made from like Adobe Analytics data. Let's go out a little bit. So this wasn't like super relevant. This took me about 2 hours to build. took about 4 hours because it was coming from Adobe, and it took like 5 minutes to load data every time I like put a new chart on there. Like I would throw a new chart on there, and then it would like just spin until it fetched and like queried the data and then uploaded something.
Your
But-
boxes aren't straight.
Huh?
Your boxes aren't straight.
Listen, you know how long this took. My one complaint is that you can't. There's not like a title field for a chart. Like, why don't they just give me a title field? Because other than that, I have to manually put in a text box above a chart. Why can't they just put it? Anyways,
Looks pretty though.
yeah, it is pretty, right? So this was just kind of like a sample dashboard we made for someone. Like, hey, you know, the majority of the users coming to your site are actually on Android rather than iOS, which most people think there are more iOS users. This particular company is very software techie kind of oriented, so they actually have like a lot of like 3D modelers who access the site. You know, kind of showing like the comparison between like new visitors and return users. So it looks like in some cases their return users are actually higher than their new users, which is awesome. So that shows like brand like awareness and like people are coming back. This was the one where their visits and page views went down, but their revenue went up, right? So this was an e-commerce site, and in this table, we were like, this is totally unrelated, but they were implementing paid keyword search, right? And so we were comparing the amount of money they were spending on paid keywords versus how many orders and revenue they were bringing in. So, which was kind of an interesting report. So yeah, it's just like there's so many different things you can do with Data Studio, and if you're kind of wondering,
Data Studio.
huh?
That's Data Studio.
That was Data Studio, yeah. So this was using one of the community connectors, connecting to Adobe Analytics and pulling all that data into Google Data Studio. So yeah, so this was like live data at the time.
Hey, can you share that Google Analytics cheat sheet?
Yeah, the one on my desk.
Yeah, I figured you had a digital copy of it somewhere.
Oh no, I didn't make it. Heather made it. Heather Steele. So yeah. Questions, comments, concerns?
That's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
I
And
want
it's,
to go home and play with it.
yeah, it's awesome. It's free. I definitely recommend reading the Clipfolio blog post. It's really short. It's nice and brief. Read the measurement plan report. You know, and if you're curious, just like go fetch some data. I wonder if, let me see if I have.
Watching this is like shows how nice it is to work with clean data.
Yeah,
Everything's so easy.
it's great. I wonder. Let's see. This was.
This makes me want to mess around with the open. What is it? Open Denton.
Yeah, so it's data.cityofdenton.com. And so that's like city civic data that you can go in and do whatever you want with.
That's pretty sweet.
I need to label it. Hopefully we'll wait for it to fetch. But yeah. So this was the code violation data that I was playing with.
Building codes and all kinds of stuff.
It's like community improvement. What do they call it? Community improvement something. So I started building like the report I built in Tableau. It was like a time series of code violation stuff, and I was trying to rebuild it in Google, but I had to do some like getting the lat long of things. So
Trash bin.
so it's
So to get the lat long, then you have to concatenate those three columns, like the zip, the address, and the city.
yeah, and then I had to run it through a script that would then generate the lat long. Now I didn't use the spreadsheet one for that. This one I'd cleaned up way before.
Okay.
And actually, if you go to github.com/opendenton, whoops, that's not right. Denton. We had this Denton dashboard, and then I made like a little branch in here to put my work on. CIS code violations. This right here was the like output of like all these scripts I had to write to like work through getting the scraper working to like go convert everything. But yeah, once I got it all done, like it's now like a giant ass spreadsheet that has like 45,000 records or something like that. Because it's like for the past 5 years,
Got it.
like the number of violations over the past 5 years.
So did you download all those individually into CSVs and then join all them
It was one giant CSV
that you downloaded?
that was dirty, and so I had to download it, clean it, generate codes, and then do some cool reporting stuff on it. So,
Cool.
but yeah, so once I got all that, like it was super great. But now that we have Data Studio, like, what would I bother with Tableau anymore? Like I can just, put it in Google spreadsheet, generate my things there, and then import it as a data source and build some cool stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, so it was like, yeah, these are all the summary of violations, and like the top 2 violations we have as a city are trash debris and grass weeds. Also, it shows us
Wait, if you have weeds in your lawn, you get a ticket?
it's like if you don't mow your lawn
Oh.
kind of thing. Like if your grass is too tall.
Lots of rent houses.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun story. My brother-in-law had a rent house with 3 roommates when he was in college, and he was like the only one who worked. And so the mail would come in, and his roommates would just like take the mail and like throw it somewhere and like not bother with it. They all were also really bad at mowing their lawn, so they got a ticket for not mowing their lawn. And since the roommates just like threw their mail in a pile, my brother-in-law's name was on the lease, and so
no,
he
he's
was
the
the one who got the
responsible one.
ticket. And he was coming back from like Waco or something, and he got pulled over for speeding. And they arrested him because he had a warrant out. And he was like, "For what?"
For weeds.
And so they were like, "We don't know. We just know that there's a warrant out." He's like, "Can I call my sister and like have her come get my car?" And they were like, "Sure." So he did. He went to jail. They went to arraignment, and they're like, "Yeah, so you're getting arrested because you didn't mow your lawn because the ticket turned into a warrant."
Yeah, because they never respond.
Yeah. So he's sitting in jail with like these other dudes in there, and
So what'd you do?
yeah, exactly. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I got busted for coke," and like, "Oh, yeah, I was drug dealer," and he's like, "I didn't mow my lawn." True story, like true story. So yeah,
I didn't know that was offensive.
yeah,
I
it
had no
was,
idea.
it was a thing. So yeah, I might take this and turn it into a little bit better one. And
See, I
unfortunately,
thought this would be civic because it's not criminal.
it is civic data. Yeah,
But
it's
it's turned into a criminal offense because he didn't respond to it or whatever.
right. That is, yeah, it's dumb. But anyways, the only unfortunate thing with this report is that is the lowest level you can view for geography. It's like state level,
Oh, bummer.
right? Like I couldn't find like metro level. And Tableau gets much deeper. Like you can look at the actual zip code outlines. But yeah, I mean, if I remember
Google
right,
Sheets would not show you.
Because usually you can.
it's like a mapping thing.
Huh.
Let's see. So if I look at the map, you can change the zoom area. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like region and then like Texas.
Oh,
Like
so it's in there, but it's just
Yeah.
so small. You just
yeah,
can't see
like
it.
that's the only thing. Even though we have like actual coordinates, right? So yeah, unfortunately, that's as far down as we can get. So another cool thing. Oh no, I did not want to do
And
that.
that's just the thing with this. Was the Google whatever
Data Studio?
Data Studio.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were using like
Something
Tableau, like you could get closer in. So, but yeah, the other cool thing was like we have the addresses, and like some of the addresses are repeat offenders. Turns out the most popular place to throw trash on the ground is the median right outside of Ryan High School. So if you're looking for a popular trash dumping night, you know where to go.
There's
So-
a lady that lives in my neighborhood who treats her front yard as a garden.
Mhm.
You know, she's
Then
from,
I bet you
city
she's one of the
council,
top.
and she like
Probably.
demands that this, no, this is
When community improvement comes rolling through, every time I see, like, because I work from home and I see community improvement rolling through, I'm like, are you judging me? I didn't mow my lawn this week.
I'm sure they've seen much worse.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Red House, so I had college students.
Yeah. So, was there anything that you guys wanted to see that you didn't see, or something you were expecting that you didn't learn from here, or was it really just like, man, I had no idea what this was. This is pretty cool.
pretty much that.
That's
Cool.
what I'm feeling, yeah.
So I guess, if you were to do a follow-up class,
Mhm.
since you asked, tying it into services for specific use cases like, I see on there it says CRM.
Mm-hmm.
How can you build a CRM dashboard and the different parts of how the best way to build that dashboard would be, how to use the data, so like taking things like, page views and click-through rates and customer service phone calls and types of inquiries from customers, and being able to figure out how, taking a training session saying, here's how you can take all these 10-point KPIs that most people in that field find important and tie them into a single dashboard.
Mhm.
I think that'd be super useful for someone who's, like, I know what CRM is, I know the concepts behind it, I know how to do it, but if you tell me to go modify it or customize it, I'm going to say, yeah, not me. I built a calculator that doesn't work. So, oh yeah, I meant to tell you that, by the way.
Oh, cool.
That was my first development project. I built a calculator that doesn't work.
Does it intentionally give you wrong answers or just?
No, it just doesn't work. I can't get it to say anything but 0. So,
So that comes down to like your measurement plan, right? It comes down to like what you find valuable in measuring. And like in the case of CRM, one thing that would be cool is that if you're using it for sales, right? Like what section of the sales funnel are they in, right? Are they top of the funnel? Like, are they just browsing your site and you don't really have much information on them yet? Did they submit like a form to download an ebook? And so they're kind of like learning more about your company. Did they actually contact you for a quote? And so now they're like interested in purchasing. Like now you have that data on those users, and so you can do a summary of like, here's all the people we have in the pipeline overall versus the ones that are in like the lowest level that are about to close. Maybe you can probably connect this to like Salesforce if you wanted to do more Salesforce type of stuff. Well, Salesforce probably has like a ton of tools you can integrate with for that. It's also kind of overwhelming at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was one of our clients, the financial client, they were showing us all the different types of data they were using. And they had like Salesforce, like Eloqua, and like all these other things. And I was like, cool. So like, how do you guys measure like, progress over the number of conversions you're getting, like users and sales processes and leads? They're like, it's like on the fly. They're just like, we just have other people look at it. So it's like, no, the great thing, I'll end with this. I think the best purpose for building these dashboards, specifically like operations or strategic dashboards, are great for informing your team about what's going on, right? A lot of people are like go through their day-to-day working on something without understanding like their impact on like the company, like, and what they're doing and how it affects it, right? We have like marketing departments who we've asked, have you ever logged into your analytics before? And they're like, no, because X person holds the key. They have to approve Y to, get in there. Oh, it's like read only. Oh, they're creating stupid segments with our data. It's like, what's going on? So
you have a dashboard, and then it's just
yeah, you bookmark it, go back, and it's like, hey, what's the page views looking like today? How's the website doing today? What's the page? Oh, that's weird. We have a spike in page load. Is something going on? Like, is the server running slow? Is an API down? Things like that. So, yeah, it's like building the dashboard in that case is perfect. And you don't have to give anyone access to your analytics. You just have to spend 2 hours or 4 hours if you're working with Adobe to come up with what your dashboard is going to look like. So that'll be it.
good transparency. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye, Internet world.